In this video series, we're looking at an RT Prac exam, paper 1 for grade 11 from 2023, and this can hopefully help you for your exams. And we're dealing with question 3, which is going to be a text file question. Remember to go to the video description to find links to the data files where you can practice before you watch the video, and then come check out how to do the answers over here. So let's go to question 3. So question 3, we're dealing with a text file, and here we can see the details of a text file called show details, which looks like this. So there's quite intricate information here. So they tell us the data in the text file is divided into 3 sections: Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. In each section, it starts with the text act. So you can see there's the start of Act 1 and there's the end of Act 1. That's always at the end. So that's how we know the start and the end of the act. And then each line in between, each line indicates in an interval between the end of the act and the start of the new act. So there's intervals between the different acts, obviously only between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, because I think there are only 3 acts. And then each act is made up of exactly 3 performances, and that's normally got the act name with a comma followed by a number that indicates the number of minutes for that performance. Okay, so there we go. So that's how many minutes there are in that interval. So there's a 10-minute interval, a 20-minute interval, and there's that. So it's quite intricate little text file here. The text file will always have the format of 3 acts with 3 performances in each act, so it's always got that structure. Complete the code for question 3.1, which does the following. We take as input the start time of a show via a combo box and performs the necessary error checking in the event that the text file does not exist. Okay, that's our normal text file stuff. Display if it doesn't exist. Use the text file to calculate the total number of minutes for the entire show. So we're going to have to add up all these numbers basically, but not obviously we don't add that 1 and the 2, just the numbers after the commas. The minutes value after the comma of all performance, and the intervals must be used in this calculation. So there we go. They tell me the performances and the intervals. Only, they give me a hint, only the lines with commas have minutes. Okay, so maybe that's a trick. If we find a comma, then we know that that's got a value after the comma. So that's something interesting that can help us. Using the total number of minutes, calculate the end time of the show based on the start time. Note the possible starting time of the shows will always be an hour. Starting time will always be the number followed by a colon. So it'll always be on the hour. It'll never be like 1830. Displayed in the show message. And they give us the ways that we can show it. It can either be in that format or that format. So we can use lots of different options. We can either use string handling or we can use date and time functions. So let's go try it out. So let's first work out the total number of minutes. So we're going to add up all these values that have numbers after the comma. So that's what we're going to do for our text file. So here I've got the program. There I've got the text file so we can see it. So we are only looking for values after a comma. So I'm going to sum all those values. So let's go total time of the show. So there's a comma box where we can get the time of the show. So I'm not worried about that for now. I'm going to work out the total minutes. So I'm going to make our total minutes, which is going to be of type integer because they're all integer values. And we're going to go through the text file. So now I'm going to do my text file algorithm. So the first thing on my text file algorithm, okay, we've got a text file variable and an S line, so that's great. So we can say if file exists, and we're looking for this show details.txt. Show details.txt. If that equals false, that means the text file does not exist. Then we must do 2 things. We must show message no file found, a suitable message, I think they said, and then we must stop the program. We'll stop doing any of the code. Display error checking event that doesn't exist, display message, and exit the procedure. So there we go. We've done exit the procedure. There we go. So there's that. Now, if it does exist, then we get to this part over here. Then we must go assign file. That's the first step. Assign file. We're going to assign our text file variable, which in this case is called F. So I'm going to assign F to the text file, which is called this thing over here. So I'm going to copy and paste it. That's going to be the quickest way. And then I must reset it. Reset F, and then we mustn't get our semicolon over there. And while not end of file of F, do very similar to what we did with our databases. And then over here we're going to read line from F into a string called S line, which they declared for me. There's an S line variable, and then at the end we mustn't forget we're going to close the file. There we go. There's my text file algorithm all done. So we got all those marks. Now we want to add up the total minutes. So that means before I must initialize total minutes to 0. And then S line is going to be each line of this text file. So it's going to be Act 1. I don't want to do anything with Act 1. But if there's a comma, then we want whatever's after the comma. So that's the hint that they gave me. So if the position of a comma in S line is greater than 0, that means it's got a comma. Then and only then do we want to go and extract that minute and basically find out and add it to the total min. So I'm going to make another variable called minutes. And I'm going to say, okay, well, let's first extract the minutes. And that's going to equal to copying from S-line, starting at the position of this comma in S-line. But we don't want to start copying from there. We want to start copying from one after it. So I'm going to say the position of the S-line plus 1. And the reason why we need to find this position because it's at different, that starts at different places because we don't know how many letters there are in the front of it. So we're going to first find the position of the comma, go 1 plus it, and copy from that till another. All of them are 2-digit numbers, so I think it's acceptable to put a 2, but if you want to be just sure, we could say 10, just in case there's a big number there. So we're going to copy from S-line, starting at the position of the comma, plus 1, just one off, and then copy all those characters. But that is a string, and we must convert that from a string to an int so that we can do calculations with it. And then once we've got those minutes, we can then say, okay, then our total minutes is equal to our total minutes plus the minutes that we've just extracted. So there we go. So if we find a comma, and only if, then we extract the value after the comma into minutes, add that onto our total, and then we end. And that's going to go through the loop and add all of the total minutes. So there we go. So let's just see, for example, let's go and just show a message into string. I want to display our total minutes to see that all of this code is working. The good thing to test, if you're running code, test it at some point to see if there's a mistake, so that if there is a mistake, you can stop and correct it straight away. If you do everything, and you won't know where the mistake is, if it's with the stuff that you did earlier or later or so on. Display, it says file not found. So there we can already see there's a problem there. So, details there. We've spelled it incorrectly. Hopefully you picked that up. Let's show details. So let's run it now. See, that's where we pick up these little errors. Yeah. There we go, 169 minutes. Now, I think if we double check, I think that does equal to 169. Okay, so there we go. So I think we're on track. So now that we've got the 169 minutes over here, now we don't actually need to display this. What we need to do is we need to work out the time. So the time is going to come from there, from this combo box. So if I just double click on the combo box, and I want to see what values are in this combo box. So I'm going to come here to items of the combo box, and you can see all of them are on the hour. If I've got 11, 17, or 18, so let's first think about this logically. If I've got 11 o'clock and I want to add 169 minutes, that means 169 minutes. That 169 minutes is equal to 2 hours, and it's going to be equal to 49 minutes. So there we go. I've got that. So then I'm going to take 2 hours. Now we know that's always going to be a 0. We can actually take that and plus the 2 to get 13. And then we're going to add the 49 to get the time that it ends. Now if it was at 18, we would plus the 2. We would get to 20 and 49 minutes. Does everyone see the logic there? If we're using string handling. So let's use string handling for that. So we're going to get the time for that. So let's do that logic. I'm just going to copy this out so that we can see it. I need to find out what time the show is. So the show time, which is going to be a string, which we can use over here. So S show time. And we're going to get the show time from where? We're going to get S show time. We're going to get that from combo box dot text. Whatever the one is that they get, we're going to get that show time. There we go. So I've got the show time. I know that's going to be there. So now I need to work out the minutes and the hours based on this total minutes. Okay, so I need to work out a variable called, I've already got an R minutes, so I'm going to call it RHR and RMN. Those are going to be my two variables to work out those two numbers. That's what I need. So I'm going to work out, how do I get RHR? How do I get 169 get to 2? Well, I'm going to take that and I'm going to divide it by 60 to get how many times does 60 fit into 169 to get the 2 hours. And so we're not using 169, we're using our total minutes. So take that 169, how many times does 60 go into 169? It goes in twice. So that's going to be how many hours there are. And then my minutes is going to be whatever's left over after I took those 2 hours out, which is going to be the mod of 60. That in this case will equal the 2, and this will equal the 49. So now that I've got those two values, what can I do? Well, then there are lots of ways of doing it. We can say, okay, we want to take the number for the, we know the show time is going to be 11 or 17. We want the first 2 digits of show time. So what we could do is we can say, okay, we're going to copy from S show time, starting at 1 for 2 characters. That's going to get me the 11 or the 18 or the 17. And we're going to convert that from a string to an int so that it becomes a physical number, and then we can add the hours to it. Okay, so that's going to be the start hour. So I'm going to make another variable called start hour. No, not start hour, that's the end hour, because that's when the show ends. So my end hour, the hour that it ends, is going to be whatever the show times hour is, the 11, the 17, or the 18. Copy the first 2 digits, convert it from a string to int, and then we're going to add on the 2 onto it. And then we can simply say show message, and we're going to say the show ends at, and then we're going to put the time. Show ends at, and then I'm going to add my end hour, followed by a single quote, so it's colon, and then I'm going to add the RMN, because it's always on the hour, so that 49 is always going to be at the end, so we don't have to worry about adding it onto the number of minutes. It's always going to be that, so we can do that. But remember, these are integers, so let's convert this from an int to a string, and the same with RMN, that must be an int to a string. So let's run that. So it's going to, we extract the time, which will be, in this case, it'll be an 11, or it'll be an 1800, or it'll be a 1700. It'll be one of those options. So we just take in the first 2 digits, add in the number of hours onto it, and then we know that it's always going to be 0 at the back, so we don't actually need to do any calculation with that. So we just work out the hours and minutes of the show. We add on the hours onto the first 2 digits of the show time that it's starting, and then we just add the minutes to the end. So let's just test that, and let's go, boom, there we go. And if we say that the show is at 1700, then it's at 19:49, and if it's at 1800, it'll be 8 o'clock and 49 minutes. So there we go. It's working. If you want to use your date and time functions, you could do something like this. You could use a start time and an end time. So t end time and a t start time of type t time, using our time functions. We can say our t start time is equal to the s show time, but we're going to convert that from a string to time, so that'll convert it. And then we are going to say the t end time is going to be whatever this t start time is, and we want to add on a particular time onto that. So we're going to say add on an encode time. And now for encode time, what do we need? We need to add hours, which we have got the hours. We want to add on 2 hours, so we're going to put in IRH. We want to add on that many minutes, but we don't have any split seconds. If you look there, if we did this, you saw there was seconds and milliseconds. We're going to just make those 0, 0, 0, 0. So take those 2 hours and 49 minutes and add it onto the start time. And then when we show message, which we'll use, I'm not going to do the full message, but just display t end time, but we're going to display it by taking it from a time to a string. So let's try that. So we're not going to do this part here. Let's just take this part out, and let's see how this calculation does. So there we go, 49 minutes past 1 in the afternoon, and then we've got 7 in the afternoon, or we've got past 8 in the afternoon. So there we go, it is working. So that you could have used either this method or this method. If you looked at the diagram, it shows you that you could have used either one for your format. Okay, so there we go. So the key to it, we first went through the text file, extracting all the values after the comma and adding the total, and then we had to do some calculations. You had to try to work out the minutes and the hours and add it onto the start time. So there we go. So that question's done. Let's move on to 3.2. The 3.2, complete the code for question 3.2 that goes through the text file that's described previously. So the same one as we used, and we can display in the rich edit display, we can display it like this. All lines with the act number followed by the 3. So act 1 followed by the 3 acts, act 2 followed by the 3 acts, act 3. And only the performer's name is displayed, not the number of minutes. The tab positions have been set for you. All 3 acts must be displayed, okay? And the display should look like this. No error checking if the text file exists is required. So we can do this quite manually, but I'm assuming they're going to want some marks to make it more efficiently, so that we are using some sort of looping, because it's always 3 acts and it's always 3 acts in one of the acts. So let's try get one act going and then see if we can get it working for one act. And if we can get one act right, then we can just repeat that process 3 times for the other acts. That's my logic. That's what I'm going to try to do. So let's come to display table, and they've already done the setting. So we know that this is all there. So I'm going to come to the top bit here, and we're just going to do this looping part first. I'm just going to copy this code here because that's the code. We don't have to do error checking, they said. So we can come back to this button and I'm going to just come over here. And then we've already got a text file in SLine, so we've got all that. So let's paste it in, boom, boom. And we don't need a total, and we don't need all of this, but we do need the read line. Okay, so there we go. So we're going to repeat until the end of the text file. When we read line the first time it reads, it'll be Act 1. And you'll notice that we want to have a string with the word Act 1 in front of it, and then it's a tab. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have Act 1 as the first part of the string. So I'm going to create like a whole, like one row of what I want to put into this rich edit here. So I'm going to create an S row, a string row. And when we extract the first line, then I'm going to say S row is going to be whatever is in S line. So it initializes it to that. So that's going to be equal to Act 1, basically, is going to be in there. Then after that, we then want to read a line and add dance dynamics, and we're not going to take the 13. We know that the next line is going to be dance dynamics, but we don't want the comma and the last 2 digits. So I'm going to read line again over here. I'm going to read line again, and now S line will be that dance dynamics, and we're going to say S row is equal to whatever's in S row plus a #9, because we want a bit of a tab. We want a tab, and then we want the name of the act. So then I'm going to say plus, we're going to copy from S line, because the S line now over here will have dance dynamics, but we want dance without the comma. So we want to copy from S line from 1 until the position of the comma in S line -1. Why -1? Because we don't want the comma in our text. So this is going to take S line, copy from position 1 till the position of the comma -1. So it's going to copy that, and that is going to copy it, and it's going to add that onto, I don't need that bracket there, and that's going to add that text onto S row. And then we want to do it again and again. So we actually want to do this 3 times. So I want to do this process 3 times. I'm going to say for r equal 1 to 3, and we want to do these 2 things 3 times. So we make an r variable of type integer. So that will do that line. It'll go find the position of the comma. It'll first add a bit of a gap. If you look there, it'll add a gap, and then it'll go and add. And then once it's done, we can then go, okay, well then display this line in the rich edit, rich display.lines.add, and we're going to display S row. So there we go. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take this loop away. I just wanted to test it for 1 line. So I'm going to read 1 line, and let's see if that works. So forget about the loop. We're just going to read 1 line, get the Act 1, and let's see if that works for 1 line. We display, and there we've got our first line correctly done. It is exactly like we want. There we go. We read the first line, a tab, then the value, a tab, a value, a tab, a value. We just copied those values without up until the comma, and we did it 3 times because they're 3 values. So that's how we did it like that. Okay, so we got it exactly like we want. Now the problem is if I make this in a loop, and so once it's done that, and then it's done those 3 values, then it's going to loop up to the top, and we're not at the end, so it's going to do it again. The problem is, there's my problem. You'll see now when I run it, it's going to give me errors. See, now it's all messed up and stuff like that. Okay, so now it's okay. So the reason for that is when we look at the display, once we get to the FlexiFusion, we want to go to Act 2 for the next line. So if I look here, so after FlexiFusion, we want to go to Act line. There's 2 lines that are duds that we don't want anymore. Actually, what I'm going to do is once I've done this, once I've displayed it, I'm actually going to read line into F for S line. That's going to be for the text. That's the end of Act 1, and then I'm going to read line again because I don't want to do anything with the end of Act 1. I'm going to read line again, and that's going to be for the interval, and I'm not going to do anything with it. And then it's going to come back to the top and read line another time, and then it's ready to do Act 2, the next 3, and then ignore, then Act 3, the next 3, ignore and ignore. It'll probably, I'm hoping it doesn't give an error when it does the last read line with the interval. Let's test it. There we go. Just by adding that little trick, we can repeat it 3 times. You could have also used a for loop here that does for I equal 1 to 3 and done this roll process 3 times. That would also have worked. But basically, we read Act 1, we put it as the start of our row, then we just basically extracted up until the comma, and then we read the end, we read the interval, and we did that, we doing that every single time. So that's why we can repeat that process 3 times or until we reach the end of the text file. So there we go. So I think that's done. I think that's the whole of it done. That's how you do it more efficiently. So there we go. We can move on to question 4 now. Don't forget to check the video description for the links to the other videos. Click on that subscribe button to leave a like, leave a comment, and to support the channel. Share us with your friends so that they can find out about us. And don't forget our computer terms channel at Mr. Long Computer Terms. And remember, don't do it the long way. Do it the Mr. Long way.